Can tradition and modern live together with a man paying bills? That's another question to go into. I think I think yes. And again, the reason why is because I believe in marriage. And if you're married, again, there's rights. Okay, there's all this stuff you have, and people don't understand if your spouse actually steals that money, you can go to court. I mean, it might kind of suck, but you can get that money back, showing that, they just stole this.
Right.
Most people don't claim it. They're just like, they took everything and, whatever, and then they don't bring it up in court for whatever reason. But so you have the joint account. You have your own, spending accounts or whatever, but everything goes into one account. If everything goes in one account, I'm not paying the bills. You're like you still can be responsible for paying the bills. My money still goes there, and then we see what money we have, and then we'll wind up having more money because both of us eyes on the money is going to have the money accountable, unless we're both just really horrible with money.
Right.
Okay, which is, if you're bad with money, people don't get with somebody else who is like horrible with money. Just don't. That's not wise. That's dumb. So
They'll drag you down.
do some money classes, do something like that's, please. But in general, when you do that, I mean, again, you do have the really bad case scenarios but honestly, when people are dating or whatever, that can happen too. So it's not just marriage, it's dating, because people do that. But when you do that, you have your money in a joint account, you take the money. There is a reason why women used to have those coffee cans full of money just in case of something, whatever. So I'm not opposed to you guys having your own separate accounts still. And even if the woman can figure out how not to spend that money and save that money just in case of something, you got something, don't be stupid while you're over here just getting your allowance, I'll call it allowance, and buying, everything that you don't need.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like do
Louis
something
Vuitton,
with it.
yeah, Michael Kors.
So the man can still pay the bills, I think, even in a dual income household.
Yeah. It's not a bad place to be in that narrative, but as far as it being traditional versus outdated, I would say that it still has a place. I wouldn't really call it outdated. I mean, maybe
You mean with the man paying the bills? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I wouldn't say that it's outdated. There's just biological narratives that I'll always come back to, where the facilitation of provisioning falls under the man's hat. Now you can put that, if a woman can opt up to take on that role, cool. My question is how long will she operate in that role comfortably before it gets underneath her skin? Because it's a leadership role. You're deciding where the money goes. It's a logical place to be. So, I mean, obviously not saying that, women can't be logical, but from a biological narrative and from modern times, speaking in that essence, I just don't think it's natural.
Well, okay, so, you say that, but, I think it's like 80% of Japanese men, they give their wife 100% control over the income.
Well, now we're talking different cultures.
And we are, but still that's modern. Now that's more traditional actually versus modern. I know it's definitely majority and it's a high percentage.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and it's dropped just barely since like the past few decades. Okay. The past half a century. It's dropped some, but it's dropped barely. And so the reason why, and there's a lot of, so being in the military, a lot of people have joint accounts because they get married young. Sometimes it does not work in their favor. Most of the time, those couples actually stay together more often than not.
Nice.
If they don't stay together, it's probably because she cheated. The baby wasn't his. She couldn't just handle the deployments.
Legit reasons,
things like that. So majority of the time when it didn't work, it was actually like pretty much a valid reason, and it's sometimes unfortunate when she can't handle it, comes back with too much, PTSD is too bad or something like that. And those are the type of people that don't take all the money. You have the cheaters, and those are the ones that take all the money.
Right.
And so even still with that, having the joint bank account majority of the time, because the man is out there working and he's working could be 24/7. He could have a good, 7 to 4:30 job. 7:30 to 4:30 to 16:30 job in the military, and come home on weekends and nights and whatever. But in general, he's working. She's in control of the money. So even in that world, she's usually the main one paying the bills and making sure she really is making sure home is good, because it is really hard to, you have to think you're trying to hold a job down when every 3 years you're moving somewhere. And it's understandable if you can get a job on the basis and when you can transfer and stuff like that, it's great. But not everyone is lucky enough to be able to get that and then be able to transfer or whatever the case is. So, they work kind of where they can or when they can or whatever. And so usually they have one account. And they will go to that one account and, and do everything from there. And she will still be in charge of that. So when you say logical, it's like, as long as you understand your bills need to be paid and you can't go and spend money on just any and everything because you have a family to take care of. I'd say that's more of anything cultural. And it's usually going to be like the poorer cultures that do that because they try to look rich when they're not. Or just age too, just immaturity.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say that's very nuanced, honestly, because it's not a common narrative that we see in our culture. And with that, that's a unique circumstance, right? I mean, and also too, given the fact that the guy's on deployment, absolutely makes sense. He's not home to take care of the bills or to have a understanding of the scope of what's going on. So that is a completely fair game right there. So, I mean, yeah. And I would also argue it takes a special kind of woman to be willing to be in that relationship, knowing that, hey, you're not going to get all the attention you want.
Right.
Hey, I'm expecting you to be loyal, and stick this out with us, So, I mean, it's a unique situation.
Yeah. But there's a lot of households. Even when you look at millionaires, they typically have one account. I don't remember the percentage, but it was definitely, so you look at millionaires that are married, right? We already looked at these numbers. 85% of them, 86% of them were married.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yep.
57% were married for over 20 years. Or wait, it was 65% that were on their first marriage, 85% that were married, and 57%, I think it was 57% that have been married for over 20 years. And with those longer term ones, because most of them started, honestly, that's what it was. They started not being rich. And so they only had one account. And so most of them so you're still looking at just over 50% where they do have a joint account. And a lot of times, now I'll say this, millionaires also have money managers.
Correct.
So even though the woman might manage the account, they have financial advisors and stuff. So
100%.
So I guess that I feel like that's a whole nother realm. Like, even if the woman does she really or is she listening to the financial advisor?
I'm sure that now in that regard, I would like to assume that the financial advisor is looking at the money in its entirety as like a entity and making sure that it is developing for their retirement purposes. But the woman still has, because the financial advisor is not going to say, hey, make sure your electric bill is paid off.
Right,
You got a bill coming up on Tuesday.
And that depends on the family, because some of them, they do just have it like on auto pay, and the financial advisor will just keep it. So I can't really compare.
Well, like my business mentor too, his rent's paid for a year. Like he pays everything on an annual basis because he can. And with insurance,
I want to pay everything on an annual basis. That'd be nice.
Well, I mean, and the nice thing is there's discounts, like with your insurance, like, when you pay every 6 months, it's cheaper,
right?
Until you get to a point where you can set up a trust and insure yourself, and then you don't have to pay insurance anymore.
Of course not. Because then you're rich and you can do whatever you want.